Imagine walking into a quiet pub restroom, just doing your job, when out of nowhere, a group of rowdy bikers decides to make you their target. That's exactly what happened to a hardworking cleaning lady who thought this was just another routine shift. But as these bikers got louder and more aggressive, they didn't realize one critical thing. They weren't alone. Behind one of the stalls, a man sat silently, listening, and this wasn't just any man. It was action star Jason Statham, trying to keep a low profile on his day off. What happens next will leave you holding your breath. Will this brave woman have to face the mob alone? Or is someone about to teach these bullies a lesson they'll never forget? Stick around as this jaw-dropping story unfolds. You won't want to miss how it all plays out. The cleaning lady, Sarah, had always been a quiet, hard-working soul. She'd taken this job to support her family and prided herself on staying professional, no matter how tough the day got. But this wasn't like any other day. The bikers, loud, drunk, and full of misplaced bravado, weren't just being rude. They were blocking her way, mocking her every move, and making it clear they thought she didn't belong there. She gripped her cleaning supplies tightly, forcing herself to stay calm. Her heart raced as the taunts grew bolder, and she glanced nervously at the door, wondering if anyone in the pub might come to check on her. Little did she know, just a few feet away, someone was listening. Jason Statham, quietly perched in the stall, had heard everything. He wasn't one to get involved easily, but something about this situation didn't sit right with him. Something had to give. The laughter from the bikers echoed harshly in the small bathroom, each comment cutting deeper into Sarah's resolve. She focused on her work, wiping down the sink with shaky hands, hoping they'd lose interest and leave. But they didn't. One of them leaned against the wall, blocking her exit, while another kicked over her mop bucket, water splashing across the floor. In the stall, Jason clenched his fists, his sharp mind processing the situation. He wasn't the type to jump into every confrontation, but this felt different. The bikers weren't just being obnoxious. They were intimidating someone who clearly couldn't fight back. It reminded him of his own humble beginnings, the times he'd seen injustice, and couldn't do anything about it. Outside, Sarah took a deep breath, her voice steady but firm as she asked them to move. They only laughed louder, completely unaware that their actions were about to backfire spectacularly. The air in the restroom grew heavier as the bikers' taunts turned more aggressive. One of them stepped closer to Sarah, his towering frame casting a shadow over her as he smirked. "What's the matter? Can't handle a little fun?" He sneered, his voice dripping with mockery. Sarah's pulse quickened, but she refused to back down. She stood her ground, her hands trembling but her eyes steady. Meanwhile, Jason remained silent, carefully observing through the crack of the stall door. His instincts told him this was about to escalate, and he couldn't stay hidden much longer. Years of action roles had trained him well, but this wasn't a movie set. It was real, and he knew how dangerous things could get. One of the bikers grabbed Sarah's mop handle and snapped it in two with a loud crack, sending pieces clattering to the floor. Jason's jaw tightened. The moment of reckoning was close, and he knew exactly what he had to do. Before Jason could make his move, the restroom door swung open with a sharp creak. The noise startled everyone, including the bikers, who turned to see a middle-aged man in a pub uniform step inside. He was the manager, clearly annoyed by the commotion. "What's going on here?" he demanded, his voice firm but uneasy as he took in the scene. The puddles on the floor, Sarah's tense expression, and the bikers' smug grins. One of the bikers stepped forward, playing innocent. "Just having a bit of fun. Nothing to worry about," he said with a fake smile. The manager hesitated, his gaze shifting to Sarah, who opened her mouth to speak, but the biker's presence seemed to stifle her words. Jason watched it all unfold from the stall, his patience wearing thin. The unexpected twist came when Sarah, despite her fear, found her voice. "They've been harassing me," she said, her tone strong despite the quiver beneath it. The bikers' smug expressions darkened, their leader taking a threatening step toward her. The manager froze, clearly out of his depth. Jason's hand hovered over the lock. He could feel the room on the verge of boiling over. What no one realized was that this wasn't going to end the way they thought. Just as the lead biker reached for Sarah, the lock on the stall clicked. All eyes turned as Jason Statham stepped out, his calm but steely expression stopping the bikers in their tracks. For a moment, there was silence, the room charged with tension. Jason didn't say a word. He didn't have to. His presence alone was enough to shift the dynamic. The bikers exchanged uneasy glances, their confidence faltering as recognition dawned. One of them whispered, "No way, is that?" But before he could finish, Jason stepped forward, his voice low and commanding. "Apologize. Now." The lead biker, unwilling to back down completely, sneered. "Or what?" But Jason didn't flinch. His next move was swift and precise, effortlessly disarming the tension with a combination of calm authority and subtle action that sent a clear message. He wasn't playing games. Realizing they were outmatched, the bikers backed off, muttering half-hearted apologies as they shuffled out. Sarah exhaled in relief, her gratitude evident in her eyes. But as the door swung shut behind the last biker, Jason turned to the manager. "Make sure this doesn't happen again," he said firmly, his tone leaving no room for argument. Just when it seemed the drama was over, Sarah glanced at Jason and smiled. "Thank you, but how did they not recognize you sooner?" Jason smirked, pulling a baseball cap from his pocket and placing it on his head. "Guess it's my day off." With that, he turned and walked out, leaving behind an unforgettable story that Sarah would recount for years. As the restroom settled into an almost eerie quiet, Sarah stood there for a moment, letting the events sink in. She glanced at the broken mop handle and the puddles on the floor, then shook her head with a small, relieved laugh. The tension had melted away, replaced by gratitude and awe. She hadn't expected a Hollywood star to step in and stand up for her, especially in such an ordinary setting. The manager, still a bit stunned, apologized profusely and promised Sarah that the bikers would be banned from the pub. "You shouldn't have had to deal with that," he admitted. Sarah nodded, grateful but eager to move on. As she stepped out into the pub, her coworkers greeted her with knowing smiles. Having caught glimpses of Jason Statham leaving quietly moments earlier. For Sarah, it was a day that reminded her of the power of unexpected allies and standing her ground.